Hey, what's good, y'all? Fusion here, back with another video. What is a classic album? There's been a lot of really good hip hop that has came out of these past few weeks. We have Clips, Freddie Gibbs, Saba, and No ID. They dropped something. We got Jid. He dropped. Drake's supposed to be dropping soon. For those of y'all who care, but I brought up something on my TikTok. I will try to make a full-length sort of video about it because I think it's about time for us to talk about this individual. But J. Cole. I believe that J. Cole only has one classic album. I think he has a lot of decent to good to great albums, but classic, I do not know. I don't think they have the longevity that we all assume that he would have in those albums. Like the only one that I can 100% say is a classic is Forest Hills Drive. I believe that is a classic. I believe he did a lot on that album. It has the critical acclaim, it has the impact, it has the longevity. You can still put it on now and it still feels and sounds fresh to you. The issue arises when you talk about his other albums. And I'm going to definitely talk about a LA J. Cole video at some point, but for the sake of the argument, I'm going to break down what I have, and then I want to go ahead and use the AI mode on Google, as you can see in the back, just so we could get a different comparison, and really talk about and really truly try to like define what a classic album is. Now, longevity, I think that's probably the most important part. Will your album be able to stand the test of time? Here's a few albums that I think are the epitome of that. Good Kid, Mad City, The Blueprint, To Pimp a Butterfly, Take Care, and these are just a couple off the top of my head. Like, I'm not gonna list, like a lot of crazy classics, but Kanye, he has a few that came out a while ago, but can still hold its own against quality albums that came out now. I think that you need to be able to drop the project and it can hold steady and still be in conversations 10 to 15 years from now. I think that you can call an album a classic after 6 or 7 years, in my opinion. You can. Will it be able to stand the test of time? Dirty Sprite 2 by Future is a classic. That album can stand the test of time. You can throw it on and people will still find a way to enjoy that album. That album is still enjoyable. And the fact that it lasted this long, and the fact that all those albums that have lasted this long and are still in conversations for best rap albums of all time, that's a classic album. Critical acclaim. People need to like it. And it needs to be more than just the fan base. I think that is where J. Cole runs into a lot of his issues. I think that's where Drake runs into a lot of his issues. They make their albums for their fans, and only their fans will consider it a classic instead of the whole as of rap. I think an objective conversation can be had about an album that is a classic. You may not like it personally, but there's millions and millions of people who consider this shit a classic. That shit has to be a classic. People consider Views a classic. I do not consider that shit a classic. I think that album has too much filler. I think it has way too many skips on it to be considered a classic. I think that there is an obvious Drake did an obvious play with what he was trying to do with this album. This was, I think, his first step into the I'm gonna make a playlist instead of an album type of stuff. And I don't think that any of those albums will be considered classics. I don't think you consider that a classic. The For All My Dogs, I don't consider that a classic. The ones with the pregnant ladies on it, that's not a classic. I don't think that Scorpion's a classic. I think y'all can think what you want about the album. I think that there are good songs on those albums, but then I also think that there is a lot of mid to trash on it that brings it all the way down. When it comes to Kendrick, I personally do not think that Damn is a classic. I think it's a little early, and I don't think it has the longevity and the pull of his 2 other albums that he dropped. I think at some point we will be talking about Mr. Morale as a classic. I think it sort of pushed the envelope of openness, I guess would be the right way to say it, on an album. Of course, like, there has always been, that's what hip hop artists know how to do well, is be introspective. And I think that that album is an epitome of introspection. That's one of those, albums where it may not have a lot of replay value, but that is just because of how heavy of the album is. I don't think that it has to have crazy replay value for it to be considered a classic, because I don't want to listen to Mother Eyes Sober every single time. I don't want to listen to Auntie Diaries every single time. I don't want to listen to We Cry Together every single time once I listen to that album. But I can appreciate those songs as good songs, as well-written songs, because of just how they are written, just what they're about, just how intentional that he was in those albums. Personally, I would consider that a classic. I think we still have to wait on that one, but I think that Good Kid, Mad City, and To Pimp a Butterfly from Kendrick, those 2 are locked in my opinion. Take Care from Drake, I think that is locked in my opinion. Forest Hill Drives by J. Cole are locked in my opinion. Now, when it comes to critical acclaim, I think that's sort of when it starts to get a little bit shaky. I think that everybody's gonna like whatever they like. Currently, I think that there is this weird anything that Kendrick does, people are gonna hate on it, even before people give it a chance. So I think now is not the time to really be talking about certain songs in Kendrick's catalog, because it's gonna go away that I don't think a lot of people would want to hear it, but it's the truth, So when it comes to where and who and what it means to be a great album and what it means to be a classic, where that fine line is as far as critically acclaim and what people think of it, I do think that there is a critics conversation. I think there is a fans conversation, and then I think there is the masses conversation. I think if you can hit all 3 of those, then I think you have the makings of a classic album. I remember when To Pimp a Butterfly first came out, there was a lot of people that did not like the album. They did not like the jazz influence. They did not like the sound. They did not like how different it was from from Good Kid, Mad City. And Kendrick didn't give nobody a warning. He just dropped I as the single, and it was a different type of Kendrick. It was, and I don't think a lot of people were ready for it. He did the same thing that he did with GNX. He's never gonna prep people for what he's going to drop. That's just, it seems like that's just not what he wants to do, and I think that's fine. Tyler, Creator, did that, and I think Kendrick would have got a different type of listen if he was like, hey, so To Pimp a Butterfly is going to be a different type of album. It's not going to be, it's a different type of introspection than Good Kid, Mad City was. Good Kid, Mad City is a story-driven album, but I also think that To Pimp a Butterfly is a story-driven album, but in a completely different way. Just the fact that you can have that conversation about that album and this album, and they are two completely different sounding albums, but sort of still have the same feel to it, if that makes sense. There's still some substance, there's still some importance, I guess is the word I'm trying to find. I don't know. That comes with those albums. People took a year or two to really sink in what To Pimp a Butterfly was, and that is a good example of longevity and critical acclaim. All Right, that song, even though it's a quote unquote simpler song, it holds so much weight in the community that there is no point, or there is no way that you cannot accept that song as a statement song. The impact, that's another part. The impact. Your album has to have some sort of impact. Your album has to impact the world in a way that people stop and listen. Take Care did that. I think that Take Care did that because of who Drake marketed the album to, and I also think that how the world was at that time really accepted Take Care as a classic. I think it's a great album still. It still holds weight. There's still great songs on there. The Weeknd really was introduced to the masses, I should say, from that album, and it put a global superstar on the map. That's impact. When you have 2014's Forest Hills Drive, I remember when that first came out. I was in high school. When that dropped, it was a different type of album. Everybody felt that album differently. It was very, very introspective. It was a personal album. You felt connected to it because he was going through damn near the same stuff you were going through. So that held a different type of weight. When it comes to what's another classic? I can't think of any more off the top of my head where I feel like I could really go deep into. But once it comes to impact, you gotta have that impact. Late Registration, The Life of Pablo, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, those had such a grandiose sound and a grandiose impact, critical acclaim, longevity. There are songs still on there that people still return to and respect. There's a reason that My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is considered one of the greatest albums of all time. There's a reason for that. To be able to make something like that, that creative, that grandiose for rap was, I think, a tipping point that led to hip hop being to what it is now. That is impact. So when you break it down like that, I think there are certain albums that need to be called up front. Die Lit by Playboi Carti, that is going to go down and should be considered a classic album. You can still go back to that album and hear how much it impacted to today's sound. I don't think that we would have a lot of these TikTok rappers, these rager rappers, these mosh pit rappers if it wasn't for that album. I think that Travis Scott and Kid Cudi and to a certain extent Lil Jon sort of was walking us up to the point of a Playboy Cardi, and that's what Die Lit was. That was the combination of all of those wanting to reach that type of rager, that type of energy on a track or an album. That is what created the Die Lit sound that is now the norm in hip hop. When you talk about Dirty Sprite 2, that's also one of those albums where it is the final evolution of the T.I., of a little bit of the Soulja Boy, Lil Wayne, onto the function or you're at the function style of music. Dirty Sprite 2 is the epitome of that and should be considered a classic album. That album changed trap. That album changed what trap was. Metro Boomin, he's always been, I feel like, a big producer. Future's always been big, but that album, I think, shot them both to the top, and it sort of changed both of their direction. So those are a couple thoughts, my opinion, on what a classic is, how certain albums would be considered a classic. Now I'm going to go over to what Google AI has to say. Again, I already said my piece, but let's go ahead and see what's going on. In the realm of rap music, a classic album signifies a body of work that has transcended time, impacting not only the genre but also culture at large. Several key elements contribute to an album achieving this esteemed status. Enduring music quality, innovative production. I think that is true. I think that as albums like they did mention, The Chronic, Illmatic, those that Cali sound with Dr. Dre, that gritty New York, that with Nas, that sort of brought out more, and that sort of pushed a lot of people around them to change how they sound, to change how they work, to really force them to push themselves to make better projects. Timeless lyrics. I think nowadays people don't appreciate a timeless flow or a timeless sound or a timeless lyric or a timeless bar, but I think we're coming to a point now to where people start caring about this again. We had Eclipse project that was excellent. The JID project was excellent. The Freddie Gibbs project was great / excellent. The Saba album was excellent. And even there's one more that I'm just not. Larry June and the 21 Savage project. That was a great project. They was rapping on that shit. But when it comes to lyricism, storytelling, I think that does come inclusive with the lyrics, a cohesive theme or narrative. I think all that is one. I think you do have to have a cohesive sound for your project to be considered a classic. Now, I don't think that you have to have a narrative or a storyline. I don't think it has to have, like what they're saying, some sort of social commentary or personal reflection for it to be considered a classic. But a lot of those albums that I did name have a cohesive sound, have some sort of energy / narrative under what they're speaking about. Dirty Sprite 2, that is the turn up. That is the on the way to the function music. You put this on while when you're about to go to the club, when you're at the club, or when you're about to leave the club for the after party, or you put it around some bitches. That's just gonna turn up. Excuse my language, but when it comes to talking the future, that is, that's the thing. Die Lit, another thing. You put that on when you are on the way to the function, at the function, the after party function, or you're just trying to have just a high energy sounding album to give you more energy. That's what you put this on for. All of it has that high energy sound. Even the slower songs like Flatbread Freestyle, that is a slower, I guess, vibe than what else was on that album. It still has a nice energy feel to it. It is almost like the intermission or the I'm gonna need to sit down for a little bit in that dial-it time, in that party vibe. So there is a cohesive theme and narrative with all of these albums that are considered classic albums. Cultural significance and influence, impact on the genre. Tupac's All Eyes on Me. I don't think that... One thing that I think Tupac did well, and I think a lot of artists are starting to really appreciate and do more, is intentionality in how they are saying certain words. 21 Savage. Yeah, that was a weird transition, but 21 Savage does this well. He does not, say crazy bars or try to do crazy bars, but the stuff he says has intention, has a weight behind it. You believe everything he says, and you are impacted by what he says. The way he says a certain, I can't think of anything right now, but the way he said, no, Young Savage, why you trapping so hard? Why you niggas capping so hard? Like, it's a very, very basic what he is saying, but how he is saying it holds weight to it. Tupac was great at that. Tupac, you held on to what he said because of the way he says it, because of the way he would bend, how he would say certain things. That impact that Tupac brought, the charisma, the energy, the power in the words that he is saying, is still in effect right now. He has impacted the genre with that album. Enduring popularity and longevity. I already spoke about longevity. Cultural impact and reflection. The NWA Straight Outta Compton, that will go down as a classic because of what that movement was around. To Pimp a Butterfly is the spiritual successor to Straight Outta Compton. And I think, yeah, I could say that. I think that there are some more albums that are in that same realm, but not sound-wise, but what they are speaking about on the album, what they are saying about that album, what strength and power is coming from what words that they are saying on that album is currently being pushed, or that was almost the same exact feel from To Pimp a Butterfly. Play King Kunta. Play I. It has that funk, but also that heaviness in it, to where that you can feel that shit. They're talking about fashion, language, lifestyles. I agree with that. Which Young Thug project was that? That is considered a classic. I don't think that the Jeffrey or Life is Fun, So Much Fun, I don't think those two would be considered a classic, but there is, I think it may be Barter 6, the Young Thug project. He created a whole new genre of hip-hop. I don't think it's a mumble rap thing. I think it's more of a melodic thing. He took what Ja Rule did and expanded on it. Walk with me. Ja Rule has always been someone who uses his rap voice more as a singing sound instead of a rap sound. Ja Rule did rap, but how he is rapping, how he is sounding, was evolved and fine-tuned by Young Thug. Young Thug uses his voice as an instrument. Sometimes you don't know what he's saying, but sometimes he's not saying anything at all. And just the way he is saying it, how it sounds, how he is pushing his vocal notes to feel something different, to where you have to really hear and see and meld it with the beat itself. That is what Young Thug does. I will never forget I was a freshman in college. My dorm mates, one of my homeboys, Doe, never forget Doe, he really put me on to Young Thug. I was not really a huge fan of Young Thug. I really didn't understand the sound. I really didn't care for the sound. It was different from me, you know? But he broke it down like Young Thug's voice is part of the beat. Young Thug's voice is an instrument. It's not that Young Thug raps bad or is a horrible rapper. There are songs where I'm hearing him actually spitting, like he's flowing on some of this shit. But when you think about what he is doing, what he is like creating, it's almost it's almost Michael Jackson-esque. Like, of course, not on, you know, like the not on the artistic level, I of course, but like when Michael Jackson does his you know that shit, those ad-libs, those sounds, there's an intentionality to those sounds. And Young Thug does that. He does that well. That's not a one-to-one comparison, but I feel like the Ja Rule comparison, mix that in with how he's using his voice. You throw in some Michael Jackson-esque ad-libs and put that over a filter. Put some auto-tune on that bitch. Put some 808s behind it. Drop it in 2014 onwards. That's Young Thug. Now walk with me. Don't turn off the video, but walk with me. Really think about it. I already talked about critical acclaim and commercial success. Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style broke sales records. What makes that album a classic is Snoop Dogg really showed a lot of charisma. Him and Tupac, Biggie, these rappers had everything plus the charisma. They knew how to rap. They knew how to make a great album. They had the style. They had the look. They had the swag. You know, that's just what it is. He also was a marketable person. The reason that I think Doggy Style is still considered a classic, it's still considered a great album, is because Snoop Dogg is still around here doing everything he can from that album. Obviously, he built off that album. He had a lot of great features. He has a lot of... he honestly just seems like a really cool dude, just in general, but this just reinforces the classicness of the album. Classic rap albums become a classic when it combines exceptional artistry, a profound cultural impact, and enduring appeal, leaving a lasting legacy on the music landscape. I can wholeheartedly agree with that. There's no mistake there. I think that a lot of people are missing the cultural impact part of it and the enduring appeal. When you're talking about views, when you're talking about For Your Eyes Only, I think that they hit a couple parts of that, but I also don't believe that the album itself, the full album, is lasting. There's a few songs. There's the Controllers, the Hotline Blings. I haven't listened to Views in a while. And maybe 2 or 3 other songs on there that have that island vibe. That is what he was going for. That is a vacation album. It is good for when you're putting it on. I'm in the background with your girl. It's a great kickback. I got a little bit of Jungle Juice. I got a little bit of rum punch in me, and I'm just trying to I don't know, if I try to chill, shake my ass a little bit, that is, that's what that is. But what about the rest of the songs on there? Same thing with Forest Hills Drive. Forest Hills Drive is a watered down Good Kid, Mad City. I don't think it's a bad album. I just re-listened to it because I'm really trying to understand why people think that this is a classic album. It may be a classic and maybe I just don't like it. Again, that could be true. That could definitely be true. But these songs aren't lasting. They're not. I think that J. Cole is he does that a lot. I really want to talk about J. Cole. That'll probably be my video either tomorrow or Thursday. But there's definitely some conversation that's going to be had about him, and I'm going to hurt some feelings because I think that J. Cole is a great rapper. I think that his fans do him a disservice, and I think he does himself a disservice on what he's trying to make. But I'll get to it. What are some other classic albums? Give an example of albums with innovative production. Okay, let's just go here. Just really seeing like what else. If you made it this far, leave a comment down below. I appreciate you guys for watching. We did already talk about Dr. Dre and the Chronic, the Wu-Tang Clan. Into the Wu-Tang. That is a very, very important album. It really changed a lot of it. I don't want to say it introduced posse cuts because that's not true, but I think it evolved posse cuts and it involved underground rap to what it is now. When you think Wu-Tang Clan and you think about what they did and what they are doing, it is definitely a how can I word this? Griselda is the evolution of Wu-Tang. Odd Future is the evolution of Wu-Tang as well. I think that the huge group with all these rappers, all these artists, all of these people involved, and being able to go do your own thing or collab and make great music, great projects, great stuff is what Wu-Tang brought. So when you hear that rawness and that grittiness from a West Side Gun project, from certain Stove God Cooks, some Makami, even some early Jay-Z music was very Wu-Tang Clan-esque. We already talked about Illmatic, Outkast with Stankonia. That album is, I think, what really pushed hip-hop more to the mainstream because it made it easier to digest with some of the soul and funk influences in it. It sort of forced the masses to listen. We all know what happened on that award show. The South has something to say. That's all I'm saying. We did talk about this. I'm not familiar with DJ Shadow. I should just go ahead and check that out at some point. Because I've heard of him, but yeah. So that's just my thoughts on a classic album. What makes a classic album? Also, some Google AI conversation as well, so you guys could sort of hear from two sides of, just two different thoughts. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. What is a classic album to you? Name some classics. I'm definitely going to talk about J. Cole. There is also a conversation I want to have about Dreamville as a whole. So yeah, y'all look out for that. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.